The ED of the 1999 TV anime, Now and Then Here and There, is certainly atypical. Not just in the context of anime EDs in general, but also with how, at a first glance, it appears to run in contrast to the content of the show. The serene, calming images of modern nostalgic Japan has seemingly very little to do with the absolutely hellish post-apocalyptic environment that the show moves into at the end of the first episode. However, not only do I think the contrast offers an amazing tonal juxtaposition to the grim narrative, but it also helps to establish the entirety of the show's central themes. And in this sense, I think it's one of the most genius applications of the meta elements of a show's construction I've ever seen. Throughout the duration of the show, our main character Shu is often left spouting variations of the phrase, "Where the hell am I?" when faced with the sheer absurdity that is the horror of Battleship Hollywood and its surrounding, all-encompassing desert. With a looming sun evaporating the remaining life on the surface, men, women, and children being indiscriminately abused in all conceivable ways for military conquest, and the sheer lack of hope present among the population. It's very easy to see this world as something totally alien and completely incompatible with our own. Characters in the show even refer to Earth as the world that Shu and Sara came from, a separate entity from the nightmare they inhabit. Watching the show is almost an exercise in relativist therapy. No matter how bad a day you had, you can watch these characters and go, "Whew, at least I ain't doing that badly." And so, when each episode ends with locations of the everyday, the side streets you cut through every afternoon, the local storefront you visit each week, the backyard of your relative you visit every other month, it can feel like a reminder of where Shu came from and what he has lost. It's like we're trying to placate ourselves. After all the terrors of the landscapes of the story, at least we, in real life, are safe here, in our world. But though it's never explicitly stated, except on the back of the DVD box because we're dummies and need to be told everything, it's very heavily implied throughout the show that this fiery hellish apocalypse is in actuality the Earth itself, billions of years into the far future, when the sun is entering its red giant phase. The very thing that gives life to our planet now will be the very thing that will eventually take it away. So it's important to note the time of day the ED is set. Sunset, with Sol bathing the land in orange and casting harsh shadows across our home, exactly the same way it does the rock formations and broken shelters that litter the future. Sunset is very prominent in Now and Then Here and There. It's the setting for both the initial and final meeting between Shu and Rararu, and a large portion of scenes take place during the twilight hours. The sunset reflects the world itself. The day is nearly done for humanity, and a chance for tomorrow isn't likely. This time acts as a connector between the worlds. For Shu and the audience, his hometown still exists, frozen in time just as he left it, just as it is in the ED. But the reality is, of course it isn't. Any one of these rock formations could be that side street, that shop front, that relative's backyard. It's also important to note that none of these tranquil shots have any humans in them. Director Akitaro Daichi was inspired to write the story after reading the news about the Rwandan Civil War and the atrocities committed with the use of child soldiers. By the time of the show's release, several generations of Japanese people had grown up not having experienced anything of World War II, the last total conflict to strike Japan. As such, the idea of some of these concepts, of ethnic genocide, desperate claiming of resources, child soldiers, and rape as a military tool, is irreconcilable with the image of modern, convenient Japan. Despite the nation's own insidious involvement with such things less than 60 years prior to the show's release. At any given time, somewhere on this planet, someone is doing something horrible to someone else. Peace is unfortunately not the default state of the Earth. And if Rwanda isn't really so far away from Japan, then Hollywood isn't really so far away from home. At the end of the show, Hollywood is grounded for good. There is promise of a new life for the survivors, and Shu is returned back to his world, to our world, the world of the ED. Once again, he returns at sunset, the connecting tunnel between the two realms. But the final shot that lingers over the end credits is that of the sun, small and in its current habitable size, but still looming over the scene. Just as the ED was our only connection to the modern world before, this shot is now Shu's, and by extension our, only remaining connection to that nightmare future. Yet, also our reminder of its eventual fate. The potential future to be built by Sada and the precious few survivors, no matter how long and peaceful a society is created, will inevitably be brought to the same end. Maybe not in their lifetime, but it will end just the same. The same way the peace of Japan's endless everyday will end. The same way that all things that exist will end. But rather than dwell on the inevitability of demise, the long struggle of the narrative seems to build to more an acceptance of this fate. The sacrifice of Rararu, despite knowing that humans are destined to perish, whether at their own hands or at those of nature's, tells that peace, no matter how fleeting, is something worth cherishing and working towards. So to once again ask that oft-repeated question from earlier, where the hell am I? In the end, it reveals a sobering answer. You're right here. いつも